Hello and welcome to the Gospel and Grounds podcast. My name is Jeremy. I am a church planter and a pastor, and I'm here with my good friend Brandon Bauer, who is a pastor and a theologian. And this podcast is about drinking hot coffee and talking about hot topics that affect you and the church, the Bible, and theology today. Let's jump in. I'm Jeremy, and with me is Brandon, and this is a podcast that we want to do because we have nothing better to do than to sit around and drink coffee and talk about the Bible and theology. So I am currently in Pickens, South Carolina, but we are moving to Bristol, Tennessee to plant Evergreen Church coming in 2027. So I've been diving a lot into the Bible, obviously, because that's something that you need as a senior pastor.
I would think so. Yeah.
But I've also been studying, things like ecclesiology and eschatology and why we believe what we believe, because when you're writing positions of faith, you need to be pretty confident in those things.
I think you would need to be pretty confident in those things to do that.
Brandon is more of the scholar here with me. I'll let him introduce himself.
I wouldn't say I'm more of the scholar, but I do have a bachelor's degree in Christian ministry, which basically means that not much.
Means you have significant student debt.
Yes, it does mean I have significant student debt. I too am a student of the Bible, and we're both pastors. I guess we should also, you mentioned that you're planting a church, but I am an ordained pastor with the Wesleyan Church. And we've started studying the Bible and all that kind of stuff on our own.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we've learned like so much on our own that just, at least for me, completely wrecked and destroyed everything I was taught as a kid.
Yes.
And so I started following Jesus at the age of 10. I actually found my baptism certificate.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you got certificates.
I did get a certificate. So my mom met Jesus at a non-denominational megachurch. There's about 2,000 members there.
Okay.
In North Carolina. And she, that's a whole kind of crazy story, because there was literally the first day she went to church, had an encounter with Jesus. That church believed in baptizing like that moment.
Oh, praise God.
No class, none of that. So she got baptized and everything. And they handed out like certificates for your baptism. And so when I was 10 years, that happened. She got, started following Jesus when I was about 6 or 7.
Okay.
So when I was 10 years old, it was Easter Sunday, and they had, I don't think this was the Sunday they had New Song there, but they did have New Song.
Yeah. Did they sing Christmas Shoes?
They didn't sing Christmas Shoes. They did sing Arise My Love.
Good, because that's a terrible song. This is my least favorite Christmas song.
They did have Arise My Love. And so they did, so that Sunday, I went up to the pastor. He kind of got my confession of faith, and then I was baptized that day. So that was super interesting. But I was taught in that context, non-denominational megachurch. And that's not like a dig on any, non-denominational megachurch, but all of the theology that I was taught kind of got unhindered a little bit when I started attending a Wesleyan church. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yep.
You mean there's other streams of Christianity? And then it got all upended again after I went through schooling. I learned a lot of like Wesleyan theology, a lot of systematic theology. And then I came on staff at the church you were at, and we started, or at least I started doing, actually all my stuff came from Ruthless Elimination Hurry.
Yep.
And that kind of unraveled some of my previous theology. And then I started listening and watching the Bible Project, and I was like, hang on a second. They're saying some things that are contradictory, feels like a strong word, but contradictory to what I was taught as like a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And that just kind of spiraled me on this, like, what is the Bible?
Yeah, it's crazy when you realize that people don't really have the Bible figured out as much as they think they have it figured out.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the people that I trusted, and this again is not a knock on the pastors and leaders that I had when I was growing up, but like that I saw them as the experts. And I felt like a lot of what they were teaching me was more systematic theology than biblical theology.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so it has been one of the things I've started doing as a pastor is I've taken this like incredibly serious because I realize now I'm leading those people. I'm that person. And I'm like, hang on, I need to understand the Bible at least as much as you can understand it. I think it's a lifelong journey, but understanding as much as possible so that I can actually pass on, what does the Bible actually say and not what does John Wesley say. John Wesley's a great guy.
Love John Wesley.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff, but he's also not Paul.
Yep.
He's also not one of the first apostles.
Yep.
And he's definitely not Jesus. you
Right.
know? So going back to like, what does Jesus say about the hot, topics of our day, even the hot topics inside the church, because those are different, What did Jesus say about eschatology?
Yeah.
What was his eschatology? Does Jesus believe in the rapture?
Ooh, that's a loaded one right there. Yeah.
What was your tradition that you grew up in?
So I grew up Pentecostal. So I was just about to say, I didn't get a certificate for my baptism, but if you were baptized in the Holy Ghost, you got a slinket. So if you fell over on the floor, they would cover you with this blanket.
Praise God.
Yeah, because they'd cover the men too. Mostly it was for the women because they were usually wearing skirts because Pentecostal church.
Oh yeah.
So I grew up in a Pentecostal church in the upstate of South Carolina. That's really all I knew for the first couple years of my life. But then I was placed into a Christian school for the first 7 years of my schooling. And my parents meant real well. They were trying to protect me from the evils
Of public school.
Of public school.
100%.
And evolution and all those things. But
Yes.
It still, despite their best efforts, still kind of messed me up because my super fundamentalist Baptist Christian school and my super Pentecostal charismatic Christian church were at odds on a lot of things.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So, at school, I was told that I couldn't lose my salvation, but I also couldn't wear a necklace because I was a boy. And at church, I was told I could wear pretty much whatever I wanted as long as I didn't drink or do drugs or chew or run with girls who do, because you can lose your salvation. So
you can for sure lose that salvation.
you can for sure. And if you don't speak in tongues at least once a week, then there's, you might have lost it.
Oh, yikes.
It could be gone.
Yeah, that's like the third part of salvation, right?
Yeah, that's it. So basically, the Reader's Digest version of my story. Maybe I'll go into the fuller thing on a later date. But by the time I was really in the 9th grade, I'd seen so much hypocrisy on both fronts, both the Christian school and the Christian church front. And I've been back to that Christian church now, and that Pentecostal church. And it's a great church, so I'm not saying anything bad about it. And I can't really speak for the Christian school because I haven't been back there. But I just decided that, the good thing about the super fundamentalist Baptist Christian school is it did instill in me a deep knowledge of the Bible. So I was studying the Bible consistently. But that was kind of a double-edged sword, because then as I'm looking around at the people around me that are claiming to be following Jesus, I'm like, well, you're not doing the things that Jesus does in the Bible.
Yep.
Anyway, so from a very young age, when I was in the 9th grade, I was like, this probably isn't real, because, I love Jesus. Like when I read about Jesus, I feel very strong emotions, but none of these people seem to be following the same Jesus that I'm reading about. So I just ejected from the whole thing. And then my life turned into one of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, because I was a punk rock kid with a skateboard, and that's what we did. Fast forward a little bit, I graduate high school. I go to Tri-County Technical College, Harvard on the Hill for those local to the upstate, and meet this girl, and we start dating. And towards the end of our first year of relationship, find out that we are going to be parents. And that led us to both of us being raised in a Christian home, and now, committing what to most people in this culture in that point in time was basically like the chief cardinal sin that you could commit, and that was
Yes.
having a child out of wedlock.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So we decide that to kind of negate a little bit of the stigma, we're going to take this child to a church to raise him in the way that he should go, according to the Proverbs. And we choose the biggest church in town because we're like, where can we go where they won't exile us to the back pew and be like, oh, the poor unwed couple with the baby.
Basically, where can you be unseen?
Yes. So we went to a large church in the upstate, and the something unexpected happened, and that was that I started hearing the gospel consistently every week. Which, for all my Bible schooling and all of my church attendance, I was in Bible school 5 days a week. I was in the church 3 days a week. I never really heard the clear, concise gospel the way that it was presented at this big church. And so Easter 2009 rolls around, and finally everything kind of clicks in my head, and like, oh, I actually have to give my life to Jesus and trust that he's going to take it and to do something with it that I can't do with it by myself. And this understanding that it's an exchange. It's not just, hey, get me out of hell. It's no, I give you everything and I trust you with it. So that started me on a journey of, I'm gonna say the D word here, Brandon. Deconstruction.
Ooh.
Oh.
That's a buzzword right there.
That is.
Yikes.
And here's the thing I will say about deconstruction is healthy deconstruction, which is deconstructing in community with the Bible, is actually very healthy because how are you going to tell people what you believe and be able to stand up for what you believe if you aren't sure what it is that you believe yourself?
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I immediately deconstructed, stripped down, threw away everything I thought I'd learned and was like, I'm going to start in the Gospels. I'm going to read through the New Testament, then I'm going to read the Old Testament, and I'm going to build my theology back up from ground zero.
Yep.
And along that way, I also found the Bible Project.
Nice.
And the Bible Project really opened my eyes to oh man, this book actually wasn't written by a whole bunch of stuffy white dudes with mustaches. This was written by, ancient Hebrew people. So maybe I should read it like ancient Hebrew people would.
Yeah. You mean in context?
In context, yeah. Yeah. Text to context. How about that? And so I did that. I learned how to read like a Hebrew. I found some of the resources. And it's like the Bible went from black and white to color when I started understanding the richness and the depth and the complexity of the literature of the Bible. And so I'm just real passionate about teaching people how to read their Bible, how to think about theology, how to think about faith in a new and not better, but a new and renewed way with fresh eyes to see it like they're seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm about.
Yeah. And our context is the American South. So we're both in South Carolina. That's where we're pastoring, but you're about to be in Tennessee, which is
still the American South.
Still the American South, which is predominantly, still a heavy Christian presence culturally.
Yes.
It's not like a secular New York or Portland or LA type of spot, which those are just hot spots in and of themselves. There's still nice conservative pockets everywhere.
Yes.
It's that honestly, it's kind of shocking to me sometimes when I hear about people talking about, oh yeah, well, I'm right outside of Portland, but it's a very conservative area, very Christian area. And I'm like,
right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
But our context is almost trying to help people deconstruct.
That's exactly it.
That's just basically what I feel like I do all the time.
We're here to help you deconstruct in a healthy way.
In a healthy way. I think we got to take away the stigma of deconstruction.
100%.
Because I did that. I mean, that's what I went through when I came on staff, the church with you, and I had mentors and people around me like yourself who was like, "Hey, I hear what you're saying about the Bible, but maybe it needs to be tweaked a little bit." it was good to deconstruct for me.
Yes.
Because I was able to strip away the bad theology, because I
Yes.
had some bad theology.
Right.
And I am still working to rebuild that. Now, I don't hate the church. I
Mhm.
love the church.
Yep.
I'm a pastor. I deeply believe in the local church, but I'm also okay with people deconstructing.
Yeah.
I'm okay with people asking questions. I am okay with people like that. To me, that is a good thing.
Yeah. I think to your point, exactly. People need to wrestle with their text
Yeah.
because, there's the whole thing of like, if you can be argued into faith, you can be argued out of faith.
Right.
And as far as asking questions, because I grew up in a context in both the Pentecostal world and the fundamentally Southern Baptist world where the mantra was don't ask questions, just believe.
Right.
But the problem with that is, Jesus is asked, I think it's 170 some odd questions in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus asks 307 questions in the Bible.
Yep.
And then of the questions he's asked, he only directly answers 3.
Yeah.
So Jesus clearly did not have a problem with questions.
Yep.
And we shouldn't either.
Right.
If your view of the God of the universe is too small to handle your questions, then that is not an accurate view of Yahweh.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the unique things I got to do recently within the past year was go to Scotland and work there for a few months. And Scotland is a primarily secular place. I would say it's very post-Christian. There's still a lot of people asking questions and stuff and wrestling with things, but there is a cultural Christianity in the sense where people are like, wow, my family's Christian.
Yep.
But that just basically means like, way back in the day we were Christian, but there's no practicing faith now. And I actually had, it was cool because I had a lot of people who didn't know anything about the Bible, and they had no preconceived thoughts. They had any of the preconceived thoughts they had were so wrong. It was so easy to like quickly say, no, it's actually not the Bible at all. But it was fun to tell people who would ask me questions about the Bible, and I would tell them like, yeah, this is a really good thing. And they're like, wait a minute, you're okay with like questioning the Bible? I'm like, 100% you should. It's called Jewish meditation literature.
Yep.
Which means you should ask the question. Like Tim Mackey says, famously, you get to page 3 and there's a talking snake.
Yep.
Why is there a talking snake?
Mm-hmm.
But I think what happens is we just keep reading and we're like, yeah, there's a talking snake. That's normal.
Yep. We've heard the story so many times, it's not unusual to us anymore.
Yeah. So the basic point of this whole podcast is really to, I think, help people healthily deconstruct.
Yes, I would say so. And we'll talk about a wide swath of topics from, can you trust that the Bible is inerrant, to eschatology, to ecclesiology, to all the different types of ologies. And, I would love to, at some point in time, have some people on here that have different opinions than me and Brandon, and we can, with love, talk about what we believe about different things. And Brandon hinted on this a little bit, and I just want to double down on it. Like our context here in the South, I feel like there's almost this like unspoken animosity for people that like have planted in New York versus people who plant in like, Nashville or something like that, of like, well, you're in the South, it's easy. I would almost argue that the challenge is equal for both, because yes, you have a lot of unchurched, non-conservative people in your major metropolitan areas, but the challenge down here is you have a whole bunch of people who are real comfortable with a cultural type of Christianity without any real depth or understanding of what that is that they're saying that they're doing.
Yeah, I think you have to, in the American South, you have to convince people that they don't actually follow Jesus.
Right.
And then tell them why they should follow Jesus.
Yep. If you ask down here, everyone's saved.
Yes.
But they can't tell you why.
But we go to church every Sunday.
We go to church every Sunday.
And listen, I think one of the things too that can happen with sometimes I've heard it in the American South is we just kind of like downplay the American South a little bit. We knock it. We're like, it's cultural, Christianity. No one in our church really knows what, who Jesus is or anything, but I feel like that's on us as pastors
Oh yeah, 100%.
to teach and to not be afraid to ask the questions and then challenge appropriately. Like you said, we can do this with love.
Yes.
Like you don't have to be aggressive in the way that you challenge people, but we do need to, I think, challenge people.
100%.
I think we need to get to a place where there is biblical literacy again.
100%. Yes.
And to not be afraid of disagreement over the small things.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things we'll talk about, we'll probably lay out the different levels of disagreement that you can have. Is this one of those things where it's a debate for type of topic,
Right.
or is it a divide for? Should we divide? What does unity look like? There's a lot of those different topics. And if you're listening to this and you're not a Christian, we'll define everything.
Yes.
And we'll try to answer as many questions as possible, but we're also just we're wanting to make sure that people have a good, clear view of who Jesus is and of what the Bible is, and the fact that it, as the Bible Project says, is one unified story that leads to Jesus.
That's it.
So
Awesome.
I'm excited.
I am too. I'm also congested, so forgive that old man sounding voice I just had.
No, it's okay.
Yep, it's going to be great, and we're excited to have you all along for the ride.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the Gospel and Grounds podcast, a part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. If you'd like to learn more about this podcast and some others, you can visit evergreentn.cc and learn more. As always, we bless you to grow in the way of Jesus together.